How's it going, your sausages? And the other day on my Instagram, I made a post where I was talking about my client and certain things that he struggled with due to his genetics, and left a little message in there about how you can sort of handle the genetic hand that you've been dealt. And it got me thinking that I would like to make a little video breaking down my genetics and just talk about the things that come naturally to me and the things that I do quite struggle with. So I'm going to break this down talking about my genetic good points, the things that on the surface might seem that are good genetics but are actually down to other factors, and then the bad points of my genetics, of which there is a lot. And then at the end, I'm just going to elaborate a little bit on what I said on the post and how you can just handle the genetic hand that you've been dealt from your mum and dad, which may involve going and giving them a pimp slap. Because my filming time's already ran over today and I've got to get to training, a quick like and subscribe, please. Bell button, OnlyFans sign up, all that good stuff. So for some reason, weirdos always want to know these things, and I am 6 foot tall, and my walking around weight tends to be anywhere between 90 and about 94 kilos, just sort of dependent on where my level of discipline is. And I don't know how people will take this, and they'll maybe think that I'm just exaggerating for effect, but genuinely, I actually don't think that I've got that good genetics. And I'm not necessarily saying I've got bad genetics, but I don't actually think that they're overall that great. And I actually think I've only really got 2 genetic strong points, unless you include being unbelievably handsome as good genetics, in which case I've got 3. So my first genetic good point is static strength, and that is really my forte. Even though most of the time I've spent lifting has been to supplement a sport, whether that be judo back in the day or nowadays where I'm doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I have hit some pretty decent lifts in the gym, like a 280 kilo deadlift and a 220 kilo squat, both totally unassisted. We'll not talk about bench press. Ask me to stay still and just shift a ton of weight and I can do that no problem. And what I would say my other genetic strong point is just my general size, and I'm going to circle back around to this in a little bit, but I do understand that it may not look like it, and especially when I'm just like sitting here talking, but in reality I am actually fairly big built. Like if I'm going for a large t-shirt, it's got to be pretty big made for me to fit into it. Like I do walk around at 90 kilos with abs, and as I said, I'm only 6 foot, so I'm not like massively tall, and just because I do have quite a wide skeletal frame, I do have the potential to hold a lot of mass. Maybe not always good mass. And I know, like sitting here and in videos and pictures on Instagram and stuff like that, that it doesn't really look like it. That's why when people actually meet me in real life, they're actually like, you're actually a lot bigger. And it's also why I've had roid accusations chucked at me my full life. And I'm going to explain to you why I look the way I do on camera and not in real life in a little bit. Now, a few of my characteristics that may seem like it's good genetics, however, it's actually nothing to do with that, and it's more so just what I have done to make me that way. So I've got a high training threshold, and right now I'm doing 7 pretty high intensity sessions a week, and that's 3 in the gym and then 3 or 4 a week grappling sessions. And that's actually not that difficult for me to go in and perform really well and be able to recover from. That is just because of the years and years of doing judo when I was younger, and since I was like 12, 13, 14, going away on training camps, training multiple times a day, coming out of school, training full time, where I would be doing 2, maybe even sometimes 3 training sessions a day, and doing like 10 to 14 sessions most weeks. And it's just something that's been built up over time, and especially doing it when I was younger. And a really good example of this is Phil Heath, who obviously is one of the best bodybuilders to have ever lived. And I've heard him talk about how he was a basketball player to a pretty good level when he was younger and was doing a load of training, and albeit it wasn't weight training, but it just overall built a high training capacity. And that's why when he transitioned into bodybuilding, he was able to do a lot more training than probably most could handle, which obviously meant more gains. Something that isn't a strong point, but I would say is definitely above average, is my fitness and endurance. And if you'd went back when I was younger and when I was carrying a lot of my extra chub, then this would have been nowhere near the good. It's not like blow away or anything, but last year when I went through my conditioning sort of focused training block, I was able to do my VO2 max testing, and I got 57, I think, or 58, which puts you at a pretty decent standard. And obviously it just stands for even having spent years doing my sports and competing in my sports at a good level, that I would have a pretty decent engine built up. Now the last thing is leanness. Now I make a big point about not bulking and being able to stay lean. and obviously I practice what I preach. And for the bulk of time that you've seen me posting online, I tend to always have some form of abs, and I'm certainly not at like a massively high or unhealthy body fat percentage. But that's not like something that comes natural to me, and I've got to make a pretty concerted effort to stay like this and be disciplined with my food and eat a relatively low amount of calories, and especially compared to how much I actually train. And I'm not just like one of these guys that can just eat anything and still like walk about with abs and striations everywhere. And that's why I make a point of saying that if I can do it and I can sit lean and still be in a position to be stronger and feel good, then anybody can do it. And that brings me on to the bad points of my genetics, and starting off with my physique and the fact that I maybe have the worst and ugliest shape for bodybuilding in the world of all time in the history. I've got a 35-inch waist, which makes me look square, ruins any illusion of having like wide shoulders and that nice V-taper. I've got very skinny and unfortunate shaped limbs, which runs in my whole family, and we're literally all have the same thing, and it's the whole reason that you'll never see my dad in a t-shirt. Like if I flex my arm up like this, they kind of look not bad, but then when I put them down here, like you can just see just the shape of them, they just look like little skinny pindly things. And also my legs too, and like they're not bad thickness up here, but my outer quad stops like up here, and I've got like no muscle around the knees, and that's why sometimes, and especially if I'm wearing like the wrong pair of shorts that cut off at the wrong point, then I really look like I've got chicken legs. And that's not even mentioning my pathetic little calves. Like they're not exactly looking like legs that can squat 200 odd kilos and even doing like 160 kilo front squats. And I've also got pretty bad skin too, and not just because I'm still spotty as fuck and I turn 30 next year, but I do have thick skin, and that's why even at a relatively low body fat percentage, I just never particularly look that muscular, and I would have to go to a really low body fat percentage for me to really start pulling my definition out. And you do get some guys where even at a higher body fat percentage, because they've got that like paper thin skin, you can still see so much like more definition and lines in their muscle. And as I said, being lean doesn't come naturally to me, and this has now been like a proper concerted effort over the last like 6 years for me to get in this nick and be able to hold it and be in a position to be able to get stronger and feel good and just function at my best. There will be some people that can't sit quite as low as me, and they will have to be sitting a little bit higher to maintain comfortably, but there's a lot of people that can sit a lot lower than me and just feel absolutely no problem at all. And from a performance point of view, the two things that I struggle most with are speed and power, and I've not got those like fast twitch muscle fibers where I'm nice and springy and explosive. And again, it's better somewhat now because I've spent years doing a sport that involves you being dynamic and obviously just getting stronger. But that short, sharp explosion and changing direction, that's just something that doesn't come naturally to me. Now, my message to you about how you can deal with your genetics, and I have had quite a few clients that kind of feel like they have been dealt a hard hand, and I'm going to give you the exact same advice as I give to them, which is you're just better off not even thinking or worrying about them. There is literally nothing you're ever going to be able to do to change your genetics. So in that sense, it's just like pretty pointless just getting caught up in thinking about them. Because if you just sit there and dwell on them, there's a good chance you're going to get to the point of feeling like, oh, what's the point? And just like sack everything off. And even if you do have extremely good genetics, you still have to put the work in to make results come. And obviously you don't want to just think, oh, I've got good genetics and be complacent. So whether they're good or bad, you're just better off saying fuck genetics and focusing on controlling what you can control, which is the effort and the commitment that you put in. And another point to add to the list of my bad genetics is my ability to record videos, because it's actually taking the piss how long it's taken me to get through this. So I'm going to leave it there. Like, subscribe, do anything else that you like that helps me out. Do something that helps you out, which is like and subscribing. Catch you later. Bye.